Welcome back to the channel, US Rare Coins News, Top 1. Today we are talking about a quarter you've probably seen before, maybe even spent without thinking, but what if I told you some of these 1776 to 1976 quarters have sold for hundreds, even thousands of dollars, just because of a few tiny details most people never notice? And here's the crazy part, millions were made, which is exactly why people ignore them. Stay with me, because I'm going to show you what makes the 1776 to 1976 Washington quarter special, the rare versions collectors look for, the errors that can boost its value, and why one simple check could change everything. Now bring the coin up on screen, slow zoom, let it shine under the light. This is the bicentennial quarter released to celebrate 200 years of American independence instead of a single year. You'll see 1776 to 1976. On the front right under the familiar portrait of George Washington that alone makes it stand out from every other quarter. But flip it over, this is where it really changes. Zoom in on the back. Instead of the usual eagle, you'll see a colonial drummer boy, a torch of victory, and 13 stars representing the original colonies. It's bold, different, and instantly recognizable. Now here's where things get interesting, because not all bicentennial quarters are the same. Most of the ones people find are made from copper nickel, common, circulated, and usually worth face value, but some were struck in 40% silver, and those were made specifically for collectors. Bring two coins side by side, tilt them under light. The silver version has a slightly different shine, softer, more muted, and if you check the edge, it won't show the usual copper stripe. That's your first big clue. Now imagine finding one of those in a pile of regular quarters. But wait, it gets better. There are also error coins, and this is where collectors really start paying attention. Look closely at the lettering and design. You might find double text, off-center strikes, or weak details. Zoom in on the drummer boy, check the drum lines, the lettering around the edge. Some coins were struck with worn dies or slight misalignments, and those imperfections can actually increase value. Now here's something most people never think about: condition matters a lot. Show a worn coin next to a crisp, shiny only circulated coin might look dull and scratched, but an uncirculated coin, with sharp edges and strong detail, that's where collectors get interested, especially coins graded at the highest levels. And here's a small twist that surprises people. Even though billions of these were made, finding one in perfect condition is much harder than you'd expect, which is why those top-grade coins can sell for serious money. So let me ask you, have you ever actually checked your quarters this closely, or do you just spend them without a second thought? Because coins like this are hiding in plain sight. Now let's talk real value. A regular circulated bicentennial quarter is usually worth face value 25 cents. A 40% silver version can be worth around $5 to $10 depending on silver prices. Uncirculated, high-grade coins can sell for $20 to over $100, and the rare top-grade or error coins, especially with strong doubling or near-perfect condition, have sold for several hundred to over $1,000 at auction, all from a coin most people overlook every day. So next time you get change, don't just toss it aside. Take a second look, check the date, check the edge, check the details, because the difference between ordinary and valuable can be incredibly small. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever found a bicentennial quarter, or are you going to start checking now? Top 2. Today we are looking at a quarter that has no mint mark at all, and for most coins, that would instantly raise suspicion, but for the 1967 Washington quarter, that missing detail is actually part of the story, and it's exactly why collectors pay attention to it. And here's what makes it even more interesting: some of these coins, pulled straight from everyday change, have sold for far more than 25 cents just because of condition, errors, and a few overlooked features. Stick with me, because I'm going to show you why the 1967 quarter is different, what hidden details to check, and which versions can actually be worth real money by the end. Now bring the coin up on screen, slow close-up, let the light reflect across the surface. In the front, you'll see George Washington facing left, clean, familiar design, something most people recognize instantly. But look closer at the date, 1967. Now here's the first twist: you won't find a mint mark anywhere on this coin. Rotate it slowly, check under the date, check the back. Nothing, and that wasn't a mistake. During the mid-1960s, the US was dealing with a coin shortage. People were hoarding silver coins, and the government needed to keep coins circulating. So from 1965 to 1967, mint marks were removed completely to stop collectors from pulling coins out of circulation, which means every 1967 quarter looks the same at first glance. But don't let that fool you. Flip the coin over, you'll see the eagle on the reverse, wings spread wide, arrows and olive branches below. Simple, bold, classic. Now here's where things start to get interesting. 1967 quarters are part of the early copper-nickel clad coins, no longer made of silver like pre-1965 quarters, so most people assume they're not valuable, and most of the time, they're right, but not always. Bring a magnified close-up on screen. Look at the lettering. Liberty and In God We Trust, check for doubling. Slight shadows around the letters. Some 1967 quarters have double die errors. Very subtle, but once you see them, you can't unsee them. Now zoom in on the edge of the coin. You should see that copper stripe sandwiched between the metal layers. But here's something rare. A few 1967 quarters were accidentally struck on the wrong planchettes, including silver planchettes left over from earlier years. If you find one without that copper edge, you might be holding something very special, and yes, those have sold for serious money. Now let's talk about condition. Bring two coins side by side again, one heavily worn, one bright and sharp. A typical circulated coin is everywhere scratches, dull shine, soft details, but an uncirculated 1967 quarter, with strong luster and crisp lines, that's a different story, especially coins that look like they were just minted. And here's something a lot of people miss because so many of these coins were used heavily. Finding one in near perfect condition today is surprisingly difficult, which makes high-grade examples much more desirable. Now think about this: how many times have you seen a quarter and just spent it without looking twice? Because coins like this are hiding in plain sight. Now let's get into real value. A regular 1967 quarter in circulated condition is usually worth face value about 25 cents. An uncirculated example can sell for around $5 to $15 depending on quality. Coins with strong doubling or visible errors can reach $20 to $100, and rare off-metal strikes, like those on silver planchets, have sold for several hundred to over $1,000 at auction, all from a coin most people ignore. So here's the question: do you have any old quarters lying around, maybe in a jar or drawer, and have you ever actually checked them this closely? Because this is exactly how people miss valuable coins. Take a second look, check the details, and you might be surprised at what you find. Top 3, today we are looking at a quarter that changed American coins forever, and most people don't even realize it, because this one coin marks the moment silver disappeared from everyday money. And here's the surprising part: even though millions were made, a few of these 1965 quarters have sold for hundreds, even over $1,000, just because of tiny details people overlook. Stay with me, because I'm going to show you exactly what makes the 1965 Washington quarter so important, the rare errors to look for, and how one quick check could reveal something valuable sitting in your change. Now bring the coin up on screen. Slow zoom, light moving across the surface. In the front, you see George Washington facing left, clean, classic, instantly recognizable. But focus right here on the date. 1965. This is the first year the US stopped making quarters out of 90% silver, and that decision changed everything. Before 1965, quarters were real silver. After 1965, they became copper-nickel clad, so this coin sits right at the turning point. Now flip it over, zoom in on the e-gluing stretched wide, arrows and olive branches below. Strong design, but very familiar. Nothing looks unusual at first, but here's where things start to get interesting. Just like the 1967 coins, there's no mint mark. Rotate the coin slowly, check under the date, check the reverse. Nothing. That's because from 1965 to 1967, mint marks were removed to discourage coin hoarding during a national shortage. So every 1965 quarter looks the same on the surface, but not all of them are the same. Now bring in a close-up of the edge. This is the most important test. A normal 1965 quarter will show a copper stripe on the edge. That's the clad layer, but a very small number of 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets from 1964, and those have no copper stripe at all, just solid silver color all the way through. Imagine finding one of those in your pocket. Change. That one detail can turn a 25-cent coin into something worth hundreds or more. Now here's another thing to check. Zoom in on the lettering. Liberty and In God We Trust. Look closely for doubling, slight shadows, or thickened lines. Some 1965 quarters show double die errors. Very subtle, but collectors look for them. Now tilt the coin under light again. You're looking for strong luster, that original shine, especially on the high points like Washington's hair and the eagle's wings, because condition matters a lot here. Bring two coins side by side, one dull and worn, one bright and sharp. Most 1965 quarters were heavily used, so finding one in near perfect condition is harder than you'd expect, and that's where the value starts to climb. But here's the part that makes this coin fun: it's still out there. People still find these in old jars, drawers, loose change, which means the hunt is real. So let me ask you, have you ever checked the edge of a quarter before, or do you just look at the front and move on? Because with this coin, The edge tells the whole story. Now let's talk real value. A regular 1965 quarter in circulated condition is worth face value about 25 cents. An uncirculated example can sell for around $5 to $20 depending on quality. Coins with visible double die errors can reach $20 to $100, and if you find one of those rare silver planchet errors, those have sold for several hundred to over $1,000 at auction, all from a coin most people ignore every day. So next time you get a quarter, don't just spend it. Check the date, check the edge, check the details, because this 1 year 1965 holds a piece of history and the possibility of real value. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever found an unusual coin in your change, or which coin you'd love to discover one day? Top 4. Today we are looking at a quarter most people wouldn't even pick up twice, but a few 1980 Washington quarters have quietly sold for hundreds of dollars, and the difference comes down to details so small you could miss them in a second. And here's the twist: this isn't some ancient coin or rare gold piece. It's a modern quarter that could still be sitting in a jar, a drawer, or even your pocket right now. Stick with me, because I'm going to show you exactly what makes the 1980 quarter worth checking, the rare features collectors hunt for, and how one tiny detail could turn 25 cents into something much more. Now bring the coin up on screen, slow zoom, rotate it under the light in the front. You'll see George Washington facing left. Clean design, familiar look, but focus on the date. 1980. This coin was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. And unlike the mid-1960s coins, mint marks are back. Zoom in right next to the date. You might see a small P or D, and if it's a proof coin, an S. That tiny letter is your first clue. Now flip it over, close up on the e-gluing, spread wide, arrows below. Olive branches, classic reverse design that stayed for decades. Nothing looks unusual at first, but this is where things start to get interesting, because most 1980 quarters are very common. Millions were made and most are only worth face value, but collectors aren't looking for most, they're looking for the exceptions. Now bring in a magnified shot, look closely at the lettering. Liberty and In God We Trust. Do you see any doubling slight shadows around the letters, thicker edges on the text? Some 1980 quarters have double die errors. Theory, not always obvious, but they're there, and once you spot one, you realize how easy it is to miss. Now shift to the mint mark area, zoom in, tighten some coins. The mint mark can appear slightly doubled or repunctuate, a small detail, but collectors love it. And here's another thing most people never check: look at the edge. You should see that copper stripe between the layers, but occasionally, you'll find coins with unusual planchet errors or weak strikes that affect the edge and overall look. These are rare, but they exist. Now let's talk about condition. Bring 2 coins side by side, one worn, one bright and flawless. A typical 1980 quarter has been used for decades. Scratches, dull surfaces, worn details, but an uncirculated coin, one with strong luster and crisp lines. That's where the value starts to build, especially coins graded at very high levels. And here's something that surprises a lot of people: even though these coins aren't that old, finding one in near perfect condition is harder than you'd expect, because most were heavily used, which means top quality examples stand out. Now imagine theory going through a jar of old coins. You spot a shiny 1980 quarter, you almost ignore it, but then you take a closer look. That's how discoveries happen. So let me ask you, do you check your coins closely, or do you just assume modern coins aren't worth anything? Because this is exactly where people miss opportunities. Now let's talk real value. A regular 1980 quarter in circulated condition is worth face value 25 cents. An uncirculated example can sell for around $5 to $15 depending on condition. Coins with clear double die errors or noticeable mint mark variations can reach $20 to $100, and high-grade examples, especially professionally graded in top condition, have sold for a few $100s at auction. Nothing unrealistic, but definitely worth a second look. So next time you see a 1980 quarter, don't just spend it. Check the mint mark, check the lettering, check the overall condition, because small details make a big difference. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever found a coin that turned out to be worth more than you expected, or are you going to start checking now? Top 5. Today we are looking at a quarter from 1986 that most people wouldn't even bother picking up twice, but here's the twist: some of these have quietly sold for over $100, and the reason comes down to details so small you can miss them in seconds. And that's exactly why this coin is so interesting. Stick with me, because I'm going to show you what makes the 1986 Washington quarter worth checking, the rare errors collectors search for, and how one simple detail can turn this everyday coin into something worth real money. Now bring the coin up on screen, slow zoom, let the light move across it in the front. You've got George Washington facing left. Clean, familiar, nothing unusual at first glance, but look closely at the date. 1986. This coin came out during a time when billions of quarters were already in circulation, so naturally, people stopped paying attention to them. Now flip it over, zoom in on the e-gluing stretched wide, arrows below. Olive branches. This is one of the last decades before the design changed to the state quarterzo. This coin is part of that classic era, but here's where things start to get interesting. Look just to the right of Washington's ponytail, see a tiny mint mark, either a P for Philadelphia or a D for Denver, and that small letter matters more than you think, because certain mints produced coins that are harder to find in top condition and collectors notice that. Now let's go deeper, bring in a close-up, really zoom into the text, look at Liberty and In God We Trust. You're checking for doubling, slight shadows or thick edges around the letters. Some 1986 quarters have double die errors, not obvious at first, but once you see it, it stands out. Now shift focus to the reverse, zoom in on the eagle's feathers, especially the wings and chest. Sharp lines mean a stronger strike, soft or faded details mean wear, and here's where the story gets interesting. Most 1986 quarters were heavily used in everyday transactions, so finding one with crisp details and original shine is much harder than you'd expect. Bring two coins side by side, one worn down, one bright and clean. That difference is everything, because collectors don't just want the coin, they want the condition. Now here's something a lot of people mischeck the edge of the coin. You should see a copper stripe running through the middle. That's normal, but if you ever find one that looks different, maybe missing that stripe or showing an unusual color, you could be looking at an off-metal error, and those are rare. Imagine spotting that in your change. Now think about this for a second. How many quarters have passed through your hands over the years, and how many did you actually look at closely? Because coins like this hide their value in tiny details, and most people never check. Now let's talk real value. A regular 1986 quarter in circulated condition is worth face value, about 25 cents. An uncirculated coin with strong luster can sell for around $5 to $15. High grade examples, especially near perfect ones, can reach $50 to over $100. Coins with visible double die errors or other mint mistakes can sell for $20 to a few $100s depending on how clear the error is, and rare off-metal errors can go even higher at auction. All from a coin most people ignore. So next time you get a quarter, don't rush, check the date, check the mint mark, check the details, because the difference between common and valuable can be incredibly small. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever found a quarter that looked different? Or are you going to start checking your coins after this? If you enjoyed this, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more videos that show you exactly what to look for in coins hiding real value. And trust me, the next coin you almost spend might be the one worth keeping.